Hello and welcome to my training Zoom room. Today we're playing with Microsoft Excel for Beginners Part 2. So we're going to review what we did in Part 1. We'll do the first two exercises again, and I'll go through them a little bit quickly because they're supposed to be review from Part 1. And then we'll do the last two exercises, which get more into the math side of Microsoft Excel. So all of the handouts for the Excel classes are located here, training.health.ufl.edu/zoom/excel. And I'd like to go look at that web page. So here it is, training.health.ufl.edu, Zoom Excel. And we can see here Beginners 1 and Beginners 2, and there's the class files. So these are actually both the same class files. And this is a recording from last year, but it's still available for you. And I'll put the recordings from this week online by the end of this week, okay? When you download the class file zip, it will take you, you'll get a folder that has two things. It has the PDF and it has the Excel file. Now in the chat window, I did put the link directly for the Excel file I'm going to use. So out here, I do have the PDF as well. So if you downloaded the file directly, you can still get to the PDF. Good. All right. So in the PDF, I'm on page 10. So if you wanted to follow along with the handout, you can do that as well. The exercise 1 starts on page 10 of the handout. And the exercise itself looks like this. Okay. So this is my beginner exercise. The first one was the customers. And in this one, we played with the column width and the formatting of the cells. So first thing we're going to do is try to get these column widths to fit properly. And remember, I can't change the size of one box here. I have to change the entire column all the way down. All 1,048,576 cells have to stretch out. So to stretch the whole column, so not in the worksheet, but up here in the headings. So I'm coming between the A and B, so I see that two-way arrow, and when I double click, right, I can do that between each of these columns, and it will grow or shrink as it's needed, right? But I didn't have to do them one at a time, right? So I'm going to come back up to my undo menu, and I'm going to undo all of those column width changes that I made. Because if I want everything, all I need to do is grab it from the corner. So up here in the corner above the number 1 in front of the A, when I click on it, it grabs the whole worksheet, right? If I click and hold it, notice the number above, 1,048,576, whole worksheet with everything selected. I'm coming between any two of the headings. All right, when I see that two-way arrow and I double click, everybody falls into place and I don't have to worry about it. And I can scroll through and make sure all the data fit, right? Some of them look like it might need to be too wide, but when we get down further, we see that it's actually just as wide as it needs to be. But I also see my titles are gone. And it would be really nice to see last, first, address, city, state, and zip across the top of this window. So in order to do that, we need to go back to the top. So I'm going to control home or scroll back up so that you can see row 1, right? Rows of a building, row 1 with our titles in it. You don't have to select it, but you can if it makes you feel better. I just need to make sure I can see it. Once we do that, we change the way we look at the file, the way we view this file. So coming into the View tab, I'm coming to Arrange, next to it. Coming into the View tab, I'm coming to Freeze Panes, right? So View, Freeze Panes, and we're freezing only the top row. Don't choose Freeze Panes again, I'm freezing the top row. If you did, just come back in and choose again, Freeze Top Row, and you'll see a little line. And as I scroll down, those titles stay at the top for me, which is awesome. I'd like to make the title stand out even more. I'm going to do that by telling it to bold. Now I could take the individual cells, but instead I'm going to take the whole row by clicking on the number 1. With that whole row selected, I'm coming back to my Home tab, and I'm going to click on the B to bold it again. Okay. And I think these balances would look nice with dollar signs on them. So I'm selecting all of column G by clicking on the G, not trying to grab the numbers here because I'm not going to get them all. clicking on the G, so it gives me the whole thing. Right? With the whole column selected, I'm coming up to my dollar signs, and I'm going to click on that little line in between, double, so it fits. Perfect. All right, so resizing the columns on page 10, freezing the panes also on page 10. Page 11 has the formatting, right? Selecting the first row and bolding, putting our dollar signs on our balance, and adjusting the column width again. Then we went through and we color coded all of our fruits and vegetables. So let me find, here's my kiwi road, and either from the ribbon or the right click, I can change the color, the fill color. It looks like a little bucket pouring out paint. All right, once I choose a color, that's what my default is now. So if I find another piece of fruit, I can make it the same color, and I can just scroll through using the wheel on my mouse. And if I see more than one at a time, I can change more than one at a time. Again, I know I'm going a little quickly, but this is a review of what we did last time. Once you have 4 or 5 pieces of fruit selected, I'm okay with that. Let's come back up and try to find our vegetables. Now, I don't want this the same color as my fruit, so I'm going to pick a different color as a veggie color. And now that's my vegetable color. And as I scroll through, I can come in and change it to be that color for every vegetable in my list. If you're coming back for the sorting and filtering class this afternoon, it's a little bit more advanced, but we will play with sorting and filtering by color. So being able to have a consistent color throughout is a powerful thing. Okay, so that's what we did here on page 11. We found the street name with our fruits and colored them in, found our vegetables and colored them in. And I didn't catch all of them today, but that's okay. I just wanted to get the feel for how to do it. Feel okay with this one? Okay, let's go look at the quarter total. This was exercise 2. With the quarter total, when we came in here, the first thing we did was we played with the different ways to select our data. So again, if I'm trying to select, so I pick up a whole bunch of cells at once, we aim for the center middle. So the mouse covers up the word and I can click and drag away from it and I get that whole swath of cells. If I come too close to the edge and I drag it, I'm going to end up moving it. Do you see that? I'm going to undo. So anywhere, if I'm too close to the edge, and it's easy to do, especially when it's zoomed down, you may not even realize that you got to drag it and you don't notice that you're too close and something weird happens. And we just tell it to undo. Okay. So from the middle selects, from the edge moves, and then there was a special place in the bottom right-hand corner, the little square called the fill handle. And when I put my mouse over that, I get that little thin plus sign. And when I drag it down, it fills in the contents of each of the cells below it. And that's not what I wanted either. So I'm going to undo. You can see it here in your handout as well. Undo. All right. Good. What I want is this to be first quarter, 1ST space QTR. And when I do, it moves to the left-hand side of the cell. Why? Because it's text now, right? Numbers go to the left. No, text goes to the left, numbers go to the right. That's how it works. So this is no longer a number. I can't do math with it, but I can take the fill handle and fill in the pattern to give me first, second, third, fourth, first, second, third, fourth. If you go too far, you'll just see it repeating itself. If you do go too far, you could undo or take that handle and pull it back up. Okay. So that's why we're using our fill handle. Then I wanted to select just the titles. I don't want the whole row this time. I just want the titles, quarter and numbered sold. So selecting these two, I'm going to tell it to bold and center. And I don't like the underline here because the underline only underlines the words. I want it to underline the whole cell. We're putting a border on it. And you can just choose the option or open it up to find your bottom border. And again, you don't see it right away. You have to click out of it to see that bottom border. Okay. The next thing we did was we told it to select these 3 cells and put that comma style on it. So I'm going to select these 4 cells, these numbers, and we're going to come into the number group, and this is not money, right? This is not cash because it's how many we sold, not how much we made. So for this one, it's not a dollar sign, but a comma. So in that number group at the bottom, that little comma style, I do not need the decimal places. So in that same number grouping or on the right click menu, I'm going to tell it to decrease. And if you get confused between these two, and I've been doing this a long time and I still do, you can click it and see it goes the wrong way, or you can pause for a moment and see the little tooltip. That screen tip tells you that the second one is your decreased decimal. And when I click back on quarter, I can see this beautiful table and it's set up exactly the way I want it to be. But if I want to make it prettier so that people can look at it and not just see numbers, but can see a pattern, well, then we want to put it into a chart. So I'm on cell A1. I'm not on my numbers anymore. I came up to the top to A1. I'm going to go to the Insert tab. And here in the Insert tab, there's a big button right in the middle that says Recommended Charts. Now yours might look a little different because my screen's a little squished here, but I'm coming with Recommended Charts. And here I've got columns and lines and pies and bars, and I just have to find one that I like. And I'm going to stick with the boring column chart. And it's picking up information from my data set here. So these are all around 2000. I see the title number sold. I see my quarters across the bottom. And when I click OK, it should hopefully look something like this. And again, if you want to get fancy, there are some fancy options up here. If I forgot to remove my decimals, they'll show up on my chart. Do you see that? If when I selected it, I accidentally grabbed the corner and filled it down, then they're all going to be the same, right? So as I'm doing these, I'm just undoing. Okay. How do you feel about exercise 2? Right. All the buttons that I used, right? The bold and the border and the fill and the centering, right? Bold, border, center, right? Our formatting of the numbers with our comma and our decimals, okay? And then we went back to cell A1 so that we were on the first title quarter. And we went to the Insert tab. It was a different tab. And we told it to insert a chart, okay? That was it. It's that easy. Okay, let's go to the next exercise now. That's the end of the review. So I'm going to slow back down for this next one. So looking at the bottom of page 13 on the handout, I can see what I want for my final result. So here in Excel, let's move to the next worksheet down here at the bottom. And I can see that my data is too high. So I can retype it all. I can try to cut and paste it all, or, well, we can just push everything down. So I'm going to select row 1 and row 2. And I'm doing this just by dragging, clicking on the 1, dragging to 2, and letting go. With both of these selected, I'm going to right click inside, and I'm going to tell it to insert. Let me do that again. Now, I'm not doing just 2 cells, I'm doing the entire row. So 1, 2, and let go. So we see the highlighted all the way across. I'm right clicking inside the selection, and I'm telling it to insert so everything bloop, pushes down. Awesome. Okay. I'm coming into cell A1, and I'm going to type quarterly sales report. To accept it, we can either use the checkbox or we can press enter. Pretty. Okay. I'm going to take row 3. No, let's not do the whole row. Let's take our titles, item through quarter 4. I'm taking these 4, 5 cells, all right, my titles. and I'm going to tell them to center. So in my alignment group, I'm clicking on my center. And each one centers in its own cell, in its own box, right? Let's do the same thing with row 1. I'm going to take quarterly sales report across to E, so I get all 5 cells. And when I go up and I tell it to center, it doesn't do what I wanted, right? I wanted it to center in all of those boxes. But that center tool, all it does is one cell at a time. Even if there's multiple cells, right? It only does one cell at a time. So I'm going to click on the center button again to turn it off, just like bold and not bold, center, not center. What I need to do if I want it to be centered in this whole area is I need to make it one cell because the center only works in one cell. And so what we're going to do is called merge cells. Do you see it here? Our merge cells. And when we click on this button, all the cells become one. So that's a dangerous thing if you're holding on to the whole row, right? If we have all 16,000 cells selected, it'll merge the whole thing, and that's not what we want, right? So we want to make sure that we only have the cells that we need to. So if I click on this again, just like before, it turns it off. So you can always undo. What I did was I selected all the cells that I need it centered in, and I merged it into one cell and centered it at the same time. Good. To make this stand out, I'm going to go ahead and give it a background color and a nice thick border on the outside. So I'm going to do a thick outside border. So again, our bucket color to fill and the little border, the thick outside border. When I click out of it, I can see it. Now you don't see across the top and left because it's all the way at the very top, but it's there, right? Notice it's on the sides too. What do I want to do next? I think instead of quarter 1, I'd rather this say first quarter. I liked that from the previous one. So you can erase what's in here and retype, or remember, if you just start typing, it will automatically enter in the new value. So I'm going to type in 1 and see it erased my first quarter, first space QTR. I found that easier than editing, but it depends on how fast of a typer you are. I'm going to press enter to accept it, or click on the little checkbox. Okay. I'm going to make sure I'm on that cell first quarter, and I don't have to type in second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Remember, we were able to use that fill handle to put in our second, third, and fourth. But that was dragging down. Now we're going to drag across. You have to be patient here because when you grab this box, you have to get past the halfway point before it clunks over. Do you see that? So if it feels like it's not there, just look at your mouse. As long as you've got that thin plus sign, you've got it. Just keep going across, and it should boom, 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 fall right into place for you. First, second, third, fourth quarter. Love it. Okay, let me put in the word total here in cell A8, right? So column A, row 8, I'm putting in total. In cell B8, in the cell next to it, I want to put in the total for first quarter. Okay, so we could do the math by hand, right? Or mentally here, 3 plus 4 is 7, 8, 9. That's 17, carry the 1. Who wants to do that? I want the computer to do that, okay? And I could build an equation that actually said 793, if I typed right, 793 plus 684 plus, I could do that too. But if my numbers up here change, I want the answer to change as well, okay? So what I need is this plus this plus this, right? This plus this plus this, 3 things. And so I'm adding up a bunch of numbers. And another way to say adding up a bunch of numbers is that you are finding the sum of the bunch of numbers, okay? So my screen is a little squished, so I don't really see it too well up here, but what we're looking for is a sigma, okay? And you can see it over here on the screen where it says AutoSum in the handout. On my screen where I'm squished, I don't see that, I just see the little sigma here. It doesn't matter which one. This fancy E means the sum of, all right? I'm not opening the menu, I'm just clicking on the picture. I want to make sure I'm in the right space first. I'm here in cell B8, And in B8, I'm going to click on that little AutoSum button. And we're going to get a function. All right. And I know this looks like programming code to those of you who've not seen it before. So I'm going to translate this into English. Okay. Equals means calculate. Anytime you're going to do math in Excel, we start with the equal sign. Okay. Sum is the function that I want. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sum something. Other ones might be an average or a count, but this time we're summing. And we are summing specifically cells B4 through B7. The colon means through. All right. So in my mind, when I read this, I see calculate the sum of B4 through B7. That's what this says. Now I know my numbers are only going to B6, but if I end up with an item D, now it'll be included. So I'm okay that the extra space is in here. So I'm going to calculate the sum of B4 through B7. And when I accept it, there's my 2079. Okay. Now, one of the things that I love so much about Microsoft Excel, well, no, one of the things I love so much about math is all about patterns, right? And Microsoft Excel respects those patterns. And when I built this equation, I actually built a pattern. And I know it says B4 through B7, but think of this as basically, this is the values above our current cell. So we are calculating the sum above. So I don't have to do the AutoSum here and here and here. I can click on this 2079. I can take the handle in the corner, and just like we pulled our quarters across, we can pull these formulas across. And when I let go, it will sum all of this column and all of this column and all of this column, right? 0, 1, 7 makes me an 8, 10, 15, carry. Right, so if I double click on this, I should see the sum of E4 through E7. That's awesome. I'm going to delete them and do them again. So if yours messed up, you can delete, or if you want to try it again, that's what I'm going to do. I've erased my totals, right? I'm here in cell B8 under my first quarter data. I'm going to click on the AutoSum button. It says calculate the sum of B4 through B7. Now here's the thing that catches people. When they try to accept it, they try to click out. And if you do that, it's going to break. So let me hit escape and try again. When you push the AutoSum button, you need to either push the Enter key on the keyboard, or you click on the check right here above column B to accept it. Okay. Then I can take the corner and I can fill it across. One more time. I'm going to put myself in the right spot. I've erased my numbers. I'm going to push the AutoSum button. I'm going to click the check to accept it. And from the corner, I'm filling it across. And when I let go, we should get our beautiful answers. And again, the lovely thing is as we change our numbers, it should change our answers. So I'm going to change this 793 to be 800. And when I press enter, and not until I do, but once I press enter, this 2079 should change to be 2086. So let's go fix our chart. Back here in my quarter total, I need this to be 2086. I'm not putting in the comma. When I press enter, the comma, it knows to format it that way. And not only does it change here, but it changed my chart. I'm going to undo so you can see I'm below the 2080. And then when I put in my 2086, I'm above my 2080. So I can change my numbers and have it change my chart as well. And if you keep taking classes with me, when you get to the linking class, I'll show you how we can change the numbers here and have it automatically link and change over here too. That's beyond the scope of today, but know that it is possible, right? So that when I make one change, changes everywhere. Okay, any questions about this one? All right, so hopefully yours looks a lot like this. All right, that one still has 793, but they're in page 13 at the bottom. That was what I was aiming for. Okay. Let's go. Next one. Oh, behave. We're going to go to our sales report. Sales report. And I can see at the bottom of page 14 what I want it to look like. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and just do my formatting first. So I'm going to do some formatting. We're going to take row 1 and tell it to bold. So I'm going to click on the 1 so it goes all the way across. And I'm going to tell it to bold. So Pandora, that's me. Why would we take a whole row? When do we take the whole row and when do we take the cells? That's going to be a judgment call on your part. I think it's easier to grab the whole row by clicking on the number and it grabs the whole thing. But this does mean that I have now bolded all of these all the way across. So if I start typing anything in, right, see it's automatically bolded on row 1. So typically as a rule of thumb, when I'm playing with things that I don't see while the cell is empty, then I'm fine with it. But if I'm doing something like a fill color, it's going to go all the way across, then I'm more likely to take just the cells. Same thing with the borders. If I take this and I put borders all the way across, right, that looks a little weird. And so then you end up with some that have borders and some that don't. So if I'm going to do something that I'm not going to see if it's empty, then I'm going to take the whole thing. But if it's just going to be for part of it, right, and I don't want to see it in the other cells, then I would just select. But it doesn't matter. Whichever way we do, I want these titles to be bold. I want my numbers here in column B to have $signs on them. So you can select the 3 of them or give me the whole column. And I'm going to click the $sign. Cha-ching. Okay, I'm okay leaving the decimals this time. I'm going to come to quantity, and this time I do want the whole column. So you can grab all 5 or give me the whole column. And I'm going to tell it to center so it's in the middle. Good. That looks good for all of them except for this one, right? This one looks funny because it's kind of leaking out of both sides. And you may remember that if I type something here, it's going to end up cutting off those words. And since I know I'm going to want my grand total here, all right, so not the whole column, but just the grand total in cell C5. I could stretch the column out, but quantity is already so skinny, I don't want to do that. So we're going to come up and look at our tools that are left, center, right. Do you see them? Left, center, right. And I'm going to tell it to be on the right side. Now, if it goes the wrong way, right, try the other right. You've got the buttons here as you hover over them, but I want to line it up on the right side so that it leaks out the left side. So I have room here for my total. Now, if I'm going to need something on this side too, well, then I'm going to have to stretch my column out or look at some different things. But for today, for this, I'm happy with it. Okay, I did some formatting just to try to get us comfortable on this worksheet because here comes the math. And I know for some of you, math is a little bit scary. But the whole goal here is just to get the computer to do the math for you. But let's start by thinking about this. All right, I'm coming in, I'm selling these beautiful golden apples for $10 a piece. And you buy 5 of them from me. So that means you owe me $50, right? So I could just type that in here, but I want it to be that if you come back and say, ooh, I actually really liked them, can we 3 more, that I could change this quantity and have it change the total for me. So I need it to calculate. And remember when we did the AutoSum, I told you calculate is that equal sign. So when I push the equal sign, it knows that I wanted to calculate something. So I wanted to calculate 10 times 5. And if I accept that, again, I get my 50. But again, if you come in and change your quantity to 8, I'm going to have to come in here and make this 10 times 8. And again, I don't want to do that. So let's step back. What I want, I've erased what I typed in. What I want is not 10. What I want is the price for my apples, right? My price for item A. And what I want is not the number 5, but I want to know the quantity that was purchased of item A. So let's try this again. I'm in cell D2, equals because I'm doing math. I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to click on the 10, which is item A's price. And it's going to put the address of that cell B2 in here. And at the beginning of part 1, I told you there are 4 modes in Microsoft Excel, right? Edit and enter and ready and point. And now that I have clicked on this address, I'm in this new mode. Down in your status bar, it shows me this is my point mode, okay? I want that number plus, I had to put me back into enter mode so I could type in anything I want, but I want it to be plus item A's quantity, which is this number here. So B2 plus C2. Now remember, when you accept this, you need to press enter or click on the check, otherwise you might break the equation. Awesome. It wasn't supposed to be plus, Pandora. It was supposed to be times. So let me erase that again. So on the keyboard, if you have a full keyboard like I do with a numpad on the far right-hand side, you have your 4 basic math functions. There should be a big button for plus. Above that is the dash to subtract. In front of that, our star, our asterisk, is what we use to multiply. And in front of that is our slash to divide. So I have add, subtract, multiply, divide always on my numpad. Whether the num lock is on or not, whether you hit the shift key or not, those 4 buttons, that's all they do. Plus, minus, times, divide, okay? Now, if I don't have the numpad, I can look for them on the full keyboard. So on the full keyboard here with the equal sign and the plus, share a button. In front of the equal sign is the dash to subtract. Above the number 8 is that star, that asterisk to multiply. And next to the, underneath the question mark, right? The same slash we use for web pages, right? That's the one that's our divide. So let's see here. This is supposed to be multiplying. Back to what we're trying to do. Equals. I'm going to take my mouse and click on that 10. So it puts in the address B2. Times, we use the star. And then we just take our mouse and we click on the quantity, C2. So equal B2 times C2. And when I accept it, $50. Cool. So I could type the equation in again and again here, these two. But again, you recognize that this is a pattern. Boom, 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 boom. So because it's always multiplying the numbers next to it, we could take that corner and we can fill it down. Now, if you go too far, you're going to get a funky value because it can't do math with this word, right? So I can just delete that. If you don't go far enough, just pick up again and drag it down, right? 20 times 20 is 400, 10 times 15 is 150, right? And I'm going to erase them and do them one more time. Equals, because I'm doing math, item A's price times item A's quantity. And when you accept it, you can take that corner and fill it down to get our answers all the way through. Good. So our grand total should be the sum of those 3, right? And I can say equals this plus this plus this. Absolutely. And that would give me the right answer. But it's faster to look on your home tab way over on the far right for that AutoSum button. And when you click on it, we'll see that it's going to calculate the sum of D2 through D4. And when I accept it, we get our 600. And if I come back up here and I change that quantity to 8 and I accept it, it carries through to my answer. If I change that price to be 12.5, again, notice I'm not typing in the $sign because it's already set up that way for me. And I press enter, it carries through to my answer. So as we make changes here in our data, once we've built these equations, they should update them themselves. So we don't have to go back and keep changing it. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to redo these last 2 exercises one more time. All right, so you're welcome to watch, you're welcome to play along. I'm not going to save this. All right, just one more time just to help cement it. And again, I'll do it quickly like I did the first two exercises. I'm looking for, oopsie, come on, baby. Items by quarter. The first thing we did was we moved everything down. So selecting the first two rows and inserting. You typed in quarterly sales report. Feel free to abbreviate. I took all 5 of these, and to get it into the center of all 5, I had to tell it to merge and center, right? So merge and center. Depending on how wide your screen is, it may just look like a little arrow pointing like mine does. As I make it wider, it'll actually spell it out. I'm looking for merge and center. And then I change the inside color and put a border on it. Okay, I want to make this first QTR. I'm going to take the fill handle in the corner, and I'm going to copy that pattern across by grabbing that corner, and I get second, third, fourth, perfect. Okay, and we put in total, and I told it to AutoSum in cell B8, right underneath the first quarter. And when I accept it, I can take the corner and fill it across so that it adds up each one of them for me. Good. Let's try the next one. In our sales report, did a little formatting first. I bolded row 1. I put dollars on column B. I centered column C. And then I went to the grand total and said, no, you should be on the right-hand side. All right, so I bolded row 1, put dollars on column B, centered column C, the grand total on the right-hand side. That was the formatting. And for the math, we wanted to calculate item A's price times item A's quantity. B2 times C2, B2 times C2. And when I accept it, perfect. Now, if when I build this, I forget and I click out of it, I can try to come back. But if I don't notice, right, there's always the possibility of undoing. And I want you to know that if you get stuck inside an equation, hit escape, right? On the keyboard, as far in the upper left-hand corner as you can get. If you want a button for it to make it stop, that's in front of the check is our cancel, right? That's our cancel button. We can click on that and it just takes us back out. But this was equal item A's price times item A's quantity. And when I accept it, there's my $50. And when I fill it down, it does the math on each line. The pattern follows me for each one. And notice when I double click to edit inside, I see the color coding showing me what I'm doing the math for. And here in D5, underneath all of these, again, I'm going to push that AutoSum to calculate the sum of D2 through D4. And when I accept, right, and here if I put in my 12.5, it should carry all the way through. Good. If you had taken so that your decimals were hiding here, right, it may roll it up to 13, but it's really still in here. Do you see it? 12.5. It's just a format. Okay. Gorgeous. So this was part 2 of the Microsoft Excel for Beginners. Right, the handout's online. If you want to practice, you're welcome to contact me if you have any questions. My name again was Pandora Rose Cowart. I teach all of the Microsoft Excel classes. If you have any questions about them, I'm a great person to know. I put a link to the evaluation in the chat window. So if you have time to fill that out for me, please do so. I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in another session.